her busy schedule to speak with us, and we are so honored to have her do so. Please welcome for the first time, making her Animal House radio debut via American Forces Network, the very lovely and very talented Melissa Manchester.
Hi there. Hi, everybody.
Melissa, thank you so much. Huge fan going back to AM radio days. I got to tell you, I've enjoyed your music for so many years, and it's so great to see that you're still out there doing your thing. I think that's the biggest compliment to us as fans that you could possibly do.
And, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Oh, yeah. I have so many questions, and I want to talk about so many different things. You got a new album out. And it's
I have a new album that is unfolding. The actual album will not be out for several months.
Okay,
we're doing it single by single.
Okay.
So we just released the second single today. The first single was out last month.
Okay,
and that's how we're spending time together.
It's a slow rollout. It's the first single was Just You and I, right?
That's correct. Yes, and it paid tribute. Yes, it was a song that I wrote with Carol Sager, and this video pays tribute to all of the first responders.
That's an amazing video. I watched it myself.
Thank you.
And we will preview that in a little bit here.
Great.
And I got to tell you, Melissa, and you heard it here first. This video, and I'm telling you, I'm making a statement right here. This video is this decade's "We Are the World."
Wow. Thank you. Well, I was very, I'm artist in residence at a small community college called Citrus College. It's about 50 miles from Los Angeles, where I live. And it's a regular community college, but they have an amazing music department, magnificent state-of-the-art studio. And their music students, their pop band, and their citrus singers, that's what they're called. I brought them all on to play on the cut, Just You and I, and to sing on the cut. I wrote all the vocal parts for them. And they get credit because this is real performance. And so it's a win-win. But the thing about these students is they are trained so beautifully. They're trained with, on one hand with discipline and on one hand with compassion. And they just bring it. They're just stunning musicians and singers.
That's got to be amazing, though, to see young people like that taking in such an interest and having the passion at an early age, too. Because I think that's very important.
Exactly. And, you see them on the video, you see them singing in the studio and all of the players. And yes, when I went to the High School of Performing Arts, you would spend half of the day studying your designated art field of interest, and then the other half of the day learning, academics. And I think the key takeaway there was not necessarily that you become an artist for the rest of your life, but to be able to internalize what it feels like to feel passionate about something.
Right.
It's incredible. Plus, in arts education, it's all about self-discipline and internalizing that and having those tools and then bringing that forward. A lot of people dismiss arts education as like la playground stuff, but it's all about self-discipline and control and being able to work out any kind of teenage angst within a structure. It's remarkable, really.
Absolutely. Josh, will we have you now, or?
I hope so.
Oh, there we go. You know what they say, 3 times the charm.
Yeah. How are you?
The scary part, I own a recording studio. This is like
Wow. We'll still steer customers towards you. We won't hold that against you.
Yeah. Exactly.
But Melissa, these two people are very talented performers and musicians, and they're big fans, so I invited them on.
Great.
And this young lady here to Josh's left, her name is Georgia Vani, and you're going to see her winning some Grammys in the very near future.
Wonderful.
I hope so, because I really want a nice house.
Yes, exactly. How wonderful. Well, maybe I can write for you one day.
Yeah, why not? Absolutely.
I'll win it for the house.
So, Melissa, let me ask you a question. This is your first time with us, and I want to get into the album, and I want to preview Just You and I. As for those of us just joining us, we are joined live now by Grammy-winning living legend Melissa Manchester, and it's an honor to have her on the show. And I mean that with all sincerity.
Thank you.
It's not often that the contributions you've made to the music world are so great, and we need iconic people like you right now because we need to be uplifted, and it's people like
Mhm.
you and your music that's doing it.
Mhm.
Um,
Thanks.
we're going to be talking about the 24th studio album. It's being rolled out slowly. The
Mhm.
first two singles have come out. One
Mhm.
was released last month. It's called
Mhm.
Just You and I. And then minutes ago, the video was just released for Midnight Blue, which we'll show
Mhm.
that later towards the interview. But Melissa, real quick, I wanted to ask you, since this is my first experience with you,
Sure.
where did the love of music come from? When did you know, hey, this is what I got to do?
Well, if I hadn't pursued music, that would have made me weird because my father was a bassoonist with the Metropolitan Opera. So I grew up around opera, and my mother was a pioneer in the fashion industry. She was a designer. So my sister and I, we grew up in the Bronx and Manhattan, which was the perfect place for me because you would stumble on adventures, you would stumble on creative adventures. So I started singing commercials when I was about 15. My late brother-in-law was a jingle writer. And singing jingles was where I met Barry Manilow and Patty Austin and Nikki Ashford and Valerie Simpson, the great songwriters, and where I really learned about performing because when you're a jingle singer, you have to learn how to think on your feet and adjust because you're being given directions by people who don't know how to direct. and then and I had a series of really spectacular adventures in Manhattan. I was a gopher in the editing room when I was 17 for the first season of Sesame Street
Oh
because these things
wow!
were all in my neighborhood. I
Oh wow!
parked cars for a little theater company on the Upper East Side, and they never asked me if I knew how to drive. I didn't.
Oh,
I
Sesame Street. We're showing our age now, Melissa. We got to slow.
Oh no, I'm thrilled with my age. Honestly, it's a privilege.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I studied songwriting with Paul Simon when I was about 17, and that year I also became a staff writer at Chapel Music. And then through Manilow, I met Bette Midler, and I became one of the founding members of the Harlettes, her background singers. For 6 months, I was with her.
Wow, that's an
Hmm.
amazing story. Josh, you had a couple. You have a connection to Melissa, right? Through her, one of her band members, or
Well, yeah. Well, actually, John Woodhead is one of my dear friends, guitar player. But yeah, my old drum teacher who had passed away, Mark Barnett at Caesars. I'm from Vegas, so I was
Uh-huh.
actually at Caesars backstage many times when you were playing. He was
Hmm.
the percussionist at Caesars, and my dad was the piano player in the orchestra.
Oh, for
So,
heaven's sake!
so I would see you when I was in school. I'd come over and I'd watch a show, and I'd be back in the wings, and sometimes I'd be behind the drummer in a tuxedo
Yeah,
watching.
that was long before it was cool for pop musicians, singers to play in Vegas. So
Yeah.
it was really, yeah, but it was great. It
Oh, I
was
see
great.
you on the marquee all the time. Every time we go,
Yes.
he's with the Manchester on the
Hmm.
marquee.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Now, Melissa, the album, was this decided to do before the COVID, or this was a COVID thing?
Yeah, well, actually, I was in the midst of recording this 24th album called Review, RE:VIEW, for several reasons. I wanted to, I have grown into these songs. I wrote a lot of them when I was, in the 70s when I was in my 20s, the blessing of these songs is that I love them and I have grown with them, and they have expanded not lyrically, but a bit harmonically. And so I wanted to revisit them, and also just on a practical level, what many of my colleagues are now doing, because most of us did not own the masters of these original records because we signed contracts in the 60s or 70s or early 80s. And so record companies had, social media didn't exist. The revenue
Right.
streams because of that. No, I mean, it was like science fiction.
Right.
And so now that it exists and it is the norm, many of us are re-recording our hits with some harmonic tweaks. And so we can license them and own them.
Right.
But I had recorded about 8 of these songs prior to COVID. I have 2 more to actually record, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. But so there are 8 done, and they need to be mixed and mastered, and but they're in the can.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What I like about this is that, and I think you stated this album as it's unfolding it's a mixture of previously unreleased stuff, and then it's a fresh take on some of your classic hits.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And now let me ask you, this COVID has got everybody, especially performers and myself as a comedian doing radio.
Right.
It's not easy when someone, especially you're performing night and day, you're always on the go. It's got to be a hard adjustment just to have to stop and slow down. But I would imagine with all the downtime, it sparks a lot of creativity, no?
Well, this downtime I've never been home this long in my entire adult life. And so when this shut down, because the last gig I had was a jazz festival in Jakarta, and I came home around March 2nd, and I was supposed to play a gig in Florida, and something happened, and I got a little sick. It wasn't COVID, but I got a little sick, and I had to cancel it, and then everything shut down. And at first, because of that abrupt halt in your life as you knew it for such a long time, it forced me to process a sense of grief because I really missed my life. And all I do was try to navigate being still and being still and being still. And the only time that I'm really still is when I'm writing. And so what I found was that once I processed the grief, once I processed the anxiety of what's going to come next or any of that stuff, in the midst of it, my daughter moved back in with me. She had been living in Minnesota. She's right inside working now. And, my son and his fiance are over the hill. My sister lives down the street. We're we're a little tribe. And honestly, it is delightful to be home, and I'm so grateful. Yes, I'm rather creative at this point. I don't write the way I did when I was first doing this. When you first start to write, it's like a second language, and everything is a gush. If you sneeze, it's a song.
Right.
But now it's more thoughtful. I have more tools. I know how to edit differently. Anyway. So now I'm really enjoying it. I must say, and the fact that we can be still and look at our society in this moment and see what's going on and see what is broken and what has been broken and kicked down the road and what is beautiful and hopeful and the unfinished business of our nation. It's a remarkable moment, actually. It's a remarkable moment for me.
Yeah. It's got to be like a double-edged sword, though, because all right, so we have to lock down and we have to stay home, and then we sort of repair, because as a performer, it's always a strain on families. Now you're having quality time with the family and you're doing and then all of a sudden it's going to start up again, and then it's going to be hard to say, oh, I got to leave you guys again, but I got to go to work.
But we don't really know where that all of a sudden is located. All of a sudden is about 6 to 8 months from now, so it's not that much all of a sudden.
Yeah. Oh well, hopefully it's.
And when those venues start to open, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if you'll be playing to 25% capacity because of social distancing. We just simply do not know.
Yeah. Josh,
So
what do
it's
you feel
really
about that? Because you're in a band too, and for me as a comedian, 25% capacity is just, it's not the same experience. And you know what? I saw Jerry Seinfeld on 60 Minutes the other day, and he said, "You know what? I'd rather wait until everything's done and everything's back to normal." But some people don't have that luxury. But I understand what he meant. But I don't think it's the same experience when you have to sit 6 feet apart. And yeah, I'm all about following the safety protocols. But I mean, it's not the same experience for the artist, I would believe, and somebody who's sitting in the audience.
But that's what I'm saying. The phrase "back to normal," who the hell knows what that's going to be?
Yeah.
This pandemic, because it was such a mess in terms of being mismanaged, it's just going to keep ricocheting from coast to coast until it gets tired of humanity and something happens. But we're not done. The world is not done with this, and so we have to keep gathering the information about how to manage it so we can somehow return to a new version of functioning in society, because we are wired as human beings to be communal, to interact. So I just miss everybody.
Yeah. No,
I'm so grateful for Zoom, because at least I can pretend that we're all sitting across the table.
Yeah, it's sort of a lifeline. Josh, what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, I just had a friend that got back from a concert they did. It was one of the few that went down. It was a few thousand people, and they kind of a little reluctantly did it, because they refused to do Sturgis because of the volume of people. And the report I got back was that basically nobody was wearing masks. Thousands of people without masks side by side. It was business as usual. And that kind of freaked a lot of the band out too, because you're not that far from them, and you got thousands of people breathing and screaming, and, you're right in the fire. And that's a dangerous thing for all the way around. And they're just not, I don't think people have really recognized what's up with it. And as far as like Georgia, her mother is in the pharmacy in Rome. She works there, and her sister is a thoracic surgeon in Rome. So they've been dealing with it since day one. And they're spiking.
But to your point, Georgia, to your point, forgive me for interrupting you, but oh well. To that point, Georgia, could you imagine your mother performing surgery without a mask? Could you imagine that?
No.
Absolutely not. It's ridiculous.
That would be.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like saying, okay, when the surgeon performs a tonsillectomy on my kid, forget about the mask. Just breathe on him and sneeze and cough and chew and spit.
Yeah. It's funny. My girlfriend's father, he lives in Italy. He's down in Sicily. And, during the height of the spike of it down there, everybody was locked down. You couldn't go out and nothing. And it was amazing what they did. Every night they went out on their porch at a certain time and they started singing from their balconies, which I thought was pretty cool.
They did that in New York as well. It was beautiful. They were banging pots and pans in gratitude to all the first responders. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're spiking again in Italy. Now they have like 9,000 cases a day there. So,
locked down. France is going back to curfew now.
Wow.
That's just terrible, man. I never thought I would see anything like this in my whole life. But anyway, now the irony of the song "Just You and I" was originally released in 1976. Written by Carol Bayer Sager. What the fun, and it also features Gerald Albright on saxophone, who's a phenomenal musician.
Right.
That song is more relevant now than it was back in 1976, because it addresses we have to come together with this pandemic and the social unrest. And like I said, I don't know if anybody, for those of us just tuning in, we're speaking to Grammy winner, a musician, singer, songwriter, Melissa Manchester. She's working on her 24th studio album, and she's got 2 singles already released. The first one was "Just You and I" about a month ago, and tonight we have the second single, which is just released on video like minutes before airtime. It's called "Midnight Blue," which we will show that as well. But when you guys watch the video, "Just You and I," if this is not this decade's "We Are the World," then I don't know what is. It is such an uplifting video, and it's just what we need right now because this. I don't know about you, Melissa, but I'll watch the news for 5 minutes. I want to see the bullet points, and then I'm out because I'm watching. Everybody loves Raymond, Sanford and Son, anything I can to laugh because it's just too depressing for me. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Well, my intention, always is to try to through our songs, and when Carol and I wrote "Just You and I," we were younger women discovering the world and trying to find our voices. And indeed, that song has grown into this moment through no design of my own. It's just one of those things, and to pay tribute to first responders is really something. When my songs first came out in the 70s, I heard from a lot of armed forces people getting through Vietnam, getting through stints, and the music helped walk them through whatever they had to get through. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And the fact that it has morphed into being relevant in this moment is honestly nothing short of miraculous.
Yeah. And it's strangely enough, we have a retired 3-star general, General Martinez, who's a big fan of the show. He's a big supporter. He actually comes on once in a while as a co-host. He was the commander for U.S. forces in Japan, and sometimes I'll bring him in as a thank you for his service. He'll guest host with me with certain celebrities. Sure. And the one thing he wanted me to stress to everybody every time we do an interview is what you just said. He says, everybody thanks them for their service, and rightly so. They should. They should always thank when they see a serviceman or woman for what they do and their sacrifices that they make. But because right now, I mean, if you're stationed in Kentucky, it's pretty easy to talk to your family. But when you're in a forward area and you're thousands of miles away from home, right, and the bottom can drop out at any minute, just to have that hour to listen to a Melissa Manchester song or watch a TV show that brings home back to you for 5 minutes, you have no idea the impact that it has. And I just wanted to reiterate that to you. And when we put a blast out that you were going to be on, we got a big reaction about that. Our armed services love you, so I just wanted to make sure
that's
you
so
knew that.
kind. Well, back at them all. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love them too, and have such gratitude and respect for them.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do right now for everybody's just tuning in, we're going to preview the video of Just You and I, which was the first single released off Melissa Manchester's upcoming album called Review. What it is, it's a combination of some previously unreleased songs and some of a retake on some of her classic hits. So right now, I want everybody to enjoy, and I want your opinion. You tell me if this is not this decade's We Are the World. This is going to be the anthem going forward.
Thanks.
When your heroes go up in pop, and there's not enough to hang on to, and the ones you would count on to call, they all fall down all around you, then you've got to believe there's more. It is the reason we're put here for. There's just you and I. You and I. When the legend's over and we are just begun, we can look to each other to see us through. Just you and I. When a miracle's long overdue, and there's no one who's gonna come to guide you, so you keep looking up to the sky, wondering why the clouds won't hide. At the times when you're most afraid, that is the reason why dreams are made. It's just you and I. You and I. When the legend's over and we have just begun, we can look to each other to see us through. Just you and I. At the times when you're most afraid, that is the moment when dreams are made. There's just you and I. When the legend's over and we have just begun, we can look to each other to see us through. Just you and I. When the legend's over, there'll be just you and I. You and I. We have just begun. There'll be just you and I. Just you and I. We have just begun. There'll be just you and I.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm a little choked up. I apologize.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
amazing. I
You
mean,
know, I wanted to capture in that everything from, as you can see, from first responders to the vision of Franklin Roosevelt, who created the WPA, where we put Americans to work because things were broken or hadn't been created yet. And so we jump-started the middle class. Besides the end of World War II, jump-starting the middle class, we gave people work to do all of a sudden. And I would hear about those days from my mom because she grew up in extreme poverty in New York City. And once Roosevelt showed up and created these programs with the help of Congress, there was work. There was just work. People could feed themselves. You know, it was remarkable. So I wanted to remind us all that of our goodness when we look to each other.
absolutely. What do you guys think of the video? Thumbs up?
I think that like it has, like the woman touch, sensitive, the way you approached everything. And by the way, from a singer point of view, the dynamics are amazing. The vocals, yeah, the choir, everybody are just this sweet way of coming into the line and then just push it and create that crescendo. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Those kids are magnificent, and they came ready to work. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And you can see it, you can feel it. Sorry.
No, I was seriously, I was digging the piano playing too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks very much.
As a musician side of it, you produce.
Sure.
As creative a vocalist as you are, people forget about your piano playing. And I'm going, yeah, that's really cool.
Thanks.
All the way you're phrasing on it's really, really nice.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
And I like all the PA stuff. I grew up in Vegas, so I used to go down to Hoover Dam, and I would look at all of the names when they built it. And my parents grew up in the Depression.
Yep.
So, I remember all the stories about the soup line when they were in it and the public works program. And Vegas was born out of that.
Totally right.
Las
Totally
Vegas.
right. And we are in that moment again.
Yeah.
And so if somehow we can be reminded of our communal good
Yeah.
and just, be there for each other from your neighbor to the top of the government, from the top of the government to your neighbor. If we can just remember how to fulfill the promises of America.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this video encapsulates so many different messages. We got to come together. Enough of the social unrest. This pandemic is affecting us all. There's nobody exempt from it. The WPA stuff, the flawless piano playing, the choir. I mean, the whole production and it was just clean and the Gerald Albright. It just all came together. Melissa, I swear to God, when I tell you this, I was welling up listening to it because
Thank you.
it hits you where it's supposed to,
Thank you. Well, while we were putting it together, of course, the George Floyd murder was happening. We were all reeling from that. So when I saw that photograph of that little boy with that sign that says "I Matter," it's that too. It's just this moment where if we play our cards right, we can finally have these discussions, finally take action, finally repair everything that we've just not ever gotten to for whatever cockamamie reason, because mostly we've been too busy. So we're in that moment. It's really interesting. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So now you've the album review, like you said, you're rolling it out. You have 2 singles that just came out so far that have been released. And how many you said we're gonna be expecting at least 8 more to add to the.
Well, there are 8 and 2 yet to be recorded, and that will be it. So because it is being rolled out at such a nice clip, because where are we going? I can take time to create these videos thoughtfully,
Right.
and figure out how to approach these last 2 songs, which I simply just never got a chance to in the studio.
Yeah. Now, Melissa, you've played with so many legendary people and performed with so many legendary people. Did you have a personal favorite of somebody who you worked with?
Oh, well, Ella Fitzgerald was everything for me.
Oh, wow.
And when I first heard her, I was 5, and my parents had an LP called Ella Fitzgerald Sings Gershwin, and it was just she and Ellis Larkins playing piano. That's all. And I had no idea what she was singing about, and a light just went off, and she was my light. She and Judy Garland were my original light, because I was raised. Yeah, I was raised with so much music, and I had done a Memorex commercial with Ella many years ago for television.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then one of my favorite stories. I love this story because even when I tell you, I can't even believe that it happened, but it's true. I was at a ceremony to honor Ella at Lincoln Center. She was going to be given the key to the city, and it was an all-star. It was just an all-star everything from Bobby McFerrin to Itzhak Perlman. It was crazy. So I was singing 2 songs with my 2 lovely women friends from Manhattan Transfer, Cheryl Bentina and Janice Siegel. And I mean, the audience was just nuts. And then finally, at the end of the evening, the late, great Joe Williams brought Ella out.
Wow.
And the place went, I mean, literally, they were unscrewing the light bulbs. They were so nuts. They were ripping up the playbills and making confetti. The roses were being thrown onto the stage. It was just insane. So we were all of the participants were standing in line, and Joe brought her out carefully. And, she finally said what she needed to say. And it was time for her to leave the stage. And she walked past me and she said, "Did I do okay?"
Wow. It's funny, and I know she's known for so much more than this, but my first experience to Ella Fitzgerald was during an Abbott and Costello movie. She was on a bus singing Little Yellow Basket. It was so funny. But I mean, obviously she had way more talent and did so much more things, but that's my first experience to her, and she became a living legend like yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What now? Melissa, let me ask you, when it comes to the writing, you said you don't write like you used to, but what is the process that you do now? Do you just lock yourself in a room until you have something, or is it like when you're maybe washing dishes or something and something will come to you, or?
Sometimes it is. A lot of times when I'm driving and I'm just listening to the radio, I'm listening to people talking, I'll start to hear a tonality that sort of peeks through. You just never know where inspiration is going to come from. And what I have learned is that if something insists on being expressed, you have to pull that car over. You have to find something, including your arms, to write with a stick of lipstick, whatever it is you're hearing all over your arms, so you don't lose it because it evaporates.
Yeah.
And so, so I have been known to do that. But when I am inspired to complete something because there's really no assignment at this point, it's just writing for myself. It's the idea that keeps pulling me in. It's so compelling. And you want to, when I'm teaching, because I teach master classes in songwriting, and when I was first writing, the language just had to get out of me. It was literally a gush. It was just emotional gush.
Wow.
And so you would just write and write and write. And when I first started writing, it was a particularly fantastic moment in music, in popular music, because the shape and content of American popular songs were changing. They were very anthemic, even when they were quiet, whether it was Carole King's You Got a Friend, or Sly and the Family Stone Stand, or Stevie Wonder. I mean, it was just Laura Nyro, Joni Mitchell. It was just spectacular. The Beatles, of course, the Beach Boys. And so lyrics were moving forward. They were moving past Moon, June, Spoon. Yet at the same time, popular music was still coming from the stages of Broadway. So there was a certain shape to songs that you could lean into. And so what I've learned through studying with Paul Simon, who was just spectacular to study with, and I teach a lot of what he taught me, is that all of the stories have been told, all of them.
Right.
It is the way you tell your story that is your mark of authenticity, that separates you out. And so it is finding your language and your way that separates you and gives you a style and a sound or whatever you're looking for.
Josh, you had any questions?
No, I like that answer because my dad was a well-known jazz player, so he would work with Sarah Vaughan. He conducted for Basie, and so we'd go see him working with Sarah or Lee Greenwood or whoever in the thing.
Sure.
And he had such a wealth of knowledge of vocalists,
Yes.
And he did. He played for Judy Garland, oddly enough. It was,
Sure.
that. And he said he was same thing. He said the best singers were storytellers. And his favorite tune he used to always play, he goes, "This is how you do it," was MacArthur Park. And he goes, he was an actor. And he goes, but listen to the story. He's telling the story. And he goes, and it's about the lyric. He goes, it's always about the lyric and what the message is. More than all the vocal
Right. Well, the thing that's interesting these days is that when I was first writing, to your dad's point, songs were still melody driven.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened in the 80s, in the early 80s with the advent of disco and all that stuff, they became rhythm driven.
Right.
And once songs are rhythm driven, because even though songs seemed to be rhythm driven in the Motown era, those compositions are so spectacular that if you just slowed them down and did them with a piano, they'd blow your mind. They're just magnificent compositions. Yeah. But once disco showed up and you were following the rhythm pattern, you had very little time to develop anything, be it a melody or a lyric. And so the intention, so the power was in repetition, and that's fine. It certainly serves its purpose, but I just think I think the heart at some point longs for that developed idea, longs for that long melody line to just calm the breathing, open the heart, soften the heart. I just think so.
Wow. So you're saying when it's a little faster, it takes away from the lyrics on some songs?
Well, it challenges the development of a lyric idea, and it challenges the development of a melodic idea. Yeah, that is why when you hear lots of songs, you will just hear one phrase repeated and repeated and repeated, which has its place. I mean, there's something to be said about the power of that too. But you want to, I mean, for me, I find it interesting to find a balance because I have a great big voice. I like to sing long lines. You know, I like to write long lines and I like to sing long lines. So.
And then get it in under 3 minutes and 40 seconds, you know.
Well, the thing about 3 minutes and 40 seconds is, as a writer, you know, if you do your job right, you create a world in 3 minutes and 40 seconds that simply did not exist before you wrote it, and that's magic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Melissa, with the 8 remaining tracks, would you be able to tell us what you're going to do a fresh take on, a classic hit, or you can't let that out of the bag? No,
you will have to follow this slow snail trail.
Because I'm curious to see which one of your classic hits you're going to
do next.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we just released Midnight Blue today, and so we'll see.
All right. So speaking of Midnight Blue, we have that video for you now. As you've just heard, this was re-released, but she did a fresh take on it for her upcoming album called Review.
It is, and it's sort of a musical conversation between present day me and all the iterations of me who sang this sweet song that I wrote with Carol Sager over the years, because it changed our careers. It really did.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. We're going to show you Midnight Blue by Melissa Manchester. Here we go.
Thanks.
Whatever it is, it'll keep till the morning. Haven't we both got better things to do? Midnight blue. Even the simple things become rough. Haven't we had enough? And I think we can make it one more time if we try. If we try one more time for all the old times, for all the times you told me you need me, needing me now is something I could use. Midnight blue. Wouldn't you give your hand to a friend? Maybe it's not the end, and I think we can make it one more time if we try one more time for all the old times. Midnight blue. I think we can make it. I think we can make it. Oh, wouldn't you give your heart to a friend? Think of me as your friend, and I think we can make it one more time if we try one more time for
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, Melissa. When you see that video and you see your younger self and you, what emotions, what comes up? Like, what is it? How does it make you feel? Like you said, it was a conversation between you now
Mhm.
and you when you were younger.
Well, I have a particular tenderness for that song, Midnight Blue, because that was the first single that was a hit that Carol Sager and I wrote. And I remember being in her apartment. I remember talking. The songs that we wrote sound very conversational because they literally come out of conversations. And part of her extreme talent in lyric writing is to pull you in right away with that first line, where it sounds to the listener as if you are listening to the middle of a conversation that's ongoing, which is a very particular one. And when I think of that song planted the seeds of such a long and enduring career. We're rounding 50 years now. Touching, and those clips of my younger self, and I remember how exhausted I was. I remember how grateful I was. I remember how misheard I was. I remember stupid contracts I'd signed. I remember the gratitude, the enduring gratitude that shows up deeper and deeper and deeper the longer I'm in this career. Because, you know, when you're early in your career, you have no idea what will come back to you and how it will impact you. And when somebody tells you that this song in particular help them decide not to commit suicide, help them decide to make a baby, help them to decide to recommit to a relationship, help them get through a jail sentence, help them, it just showed up, because not everybody has a song in them. And so songs become these worlds that are life rafts for the listener. And you don't know that when you're facing a blank piece of paper. That's not your intention, to write a life raft. Your intention is to write the best song you can. And so when these incredible emotional gifts, these psychic and spiritual gifts keep coming back at you from your listeners who have grown with you, because when I started, I was sort of out of college-ish, and my listeners have grown with me.
Yeah.
It is so touching that I have serenaded people's lives. It's absolutely nothing to take for granted and everything to be grateful for all the time.
Yeah, that's one of the things I find interesting, because I go back musically to the 70s, listening to music in the car on the AM radio, going to
Mm-hmm.
concerts in the 80s. And the one thing I found out, the true legends, and I'll give you an example. When you first started, you're playing to one generation. Now, if you perform, you're seeing 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds in the audience that weren't even,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their grandparents listen to you. How does that make you feel as a performer, that you're touching people, you're transcending decades?
Oh, it's amazing, and not to mention all of the children named after you. There's a fleet of Melissas running around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's all so touching, because it's all so unexpected. And for my heart and my psyche, it is just what I get from music. And so to be able to share that feeling with other people is really remarkable.
It's absolutely amazing. And I just want to mention to everybody, there's 2 singles out from the upcoming album, her 24th studio album called Review. And you can see the 2 videos on YouTube, Just You and I and Midnight Blue. I highly recommend you view them. And you can also visit Melissa's website at melissamanchester.com to catch
Right, and the songs can be downloaded for sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Melissa, for young and old fans, for the core audience that followed you all these years, and to the new
Mhm.
people who are just discovering your music for the first time, what is the one thing that you want them to take away when they listen to your music? The one message that you want to portray to them?
That's a very good question. I think I want them to know that there's hope. I think I want everybody to know that there's hope, and that and that life requires courage, and to know who you are is a journey. To learn who you are is a journey. And that's a lot of what I've written about, is finding your way and affirming who you are in all of your perfections and carrying on nonetheless.
Amazing, yeah. Josh, you had any final thoughts before we let this young lady go today?
No, I'm just impressed with it. There's one thing that kind of makes me think as I'm listening to all the great tunes. There's nothing like a great ballad. And but truthfully, I think that's so overlooked in society now. Everything is prefab and pop, and yeah, and it's great to thrash around and and rock out. But there was an honesty to music when you had people like James Taylor, Carole King, Melissa, artists that really sang from the heart because society would stop. And I
That's
remember
right.
being a kid playing in bands when I would go out on gigs. You would go out, and even if you danced or whatever, you would play your set, and you'd have
Mm-hmm.
6 up-tempo tunes, but you
Mm-hmm.
had 2 ballads. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? You would play the ballad in the set, and that's when everybody would want to dance. And then the guy would go ask a girl to dance, and there was that
Yes.
intimacy that the people would come together, and there was that
Yes.
moment of real that
Yes.
now people don't experience that connection anymore. You don't get that without tenderness and honesty, and you really don't get that without a good ballad. And
Yes, that's true.
I think that's what's missing in music. Everything is, I hate to say, 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Got to have 4 on the floor, and and it's sad because you miss so much of the honesty. And back then, it did change the world. You had the Beatles, you had the protest songs that changed
Right.
Vietnam, it changed our perception when we were
Right.
of what was right.
Yeah. The other thing that's amusing for me to know, there are no fades on this album. Not one. Everything just ends.
That's what we're doing. You should, like, no fades. You have an ending.
Yeah, no fades. No, I mean, what you learn on stage is the beginning, a middle, and an end, and let everybody applaud if they have a good time. And so I decided, let's recreate that and use that part that we have created on stage.
That's just talent and old school, though. That's
Yeah, it is.
I think old school is so much better. And listen, there are so many talented performers out there now.
There are.
And my thing is that, and they're all great, but I for some reason, I don't know if it's maybe the past 5 years or maybe a little longer, they seem to be putting out stuff just to put out. It doesn't have that 70s or 80s passion behind it. And listen, I'm not a musician. I don't know. I'm just speaking from what I see. I may be wrong and off base, and that's fine. I don't expect nobody to agree or disagree with me. I just don't think. Sometimes it's so mechanical, and you don't get that. When you listen to it. I know I could be off base here, but I think not all. It's some of it.
I know. A lot of times when you're hearing programs instead of live players, it can sound a little cold. That's why I love annoying musicians. Because the thing is, and that's what I love sharing with the students, is to let them see what a musical collaboration looks like. And there's no substitute for that.
There's a beauty in it because in our generation growing up, you respected music of all genres and performers.
Right.
And this is a funny thing is last night, well, Carlo, Mark Slaughter, we're on the phone last night talking about stuff, and he got back and Melissa's name came up way before Carlo had said this, Mark goes, that's a great tune. We got to remake that tune. And we brought you up last night and going, here, we're a couple of rockers going, man, Melissa Manchester. So it's really cool because a great artist transcends genres,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
you hope so. You really do hope so. Yeah.
To transcend decades is one thing, but then when you're transcending genres, that's an even bigger compliment, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I have over the course of my career, I have signed up for trying musical adventures that just did not sit in my soul. But I figured if I could, and this was coming from the record company, try this because this is the hot new trend in the moment. And I figured if I could find a turn of a phrase or a chordal progression or something that was interesting to me, if by some chance it was really successful and I had to sing it for the next 40 years, I'd be able to hook into it.
Right.
And, sometimes my students really love my more electronic stuff. I don't know what they're doing, but you give it a shot.
Good music is good music, Melissa, no matter if it's fast or slow. And you've definitely put out all of the above. And, and I cannot thank you enough for spending some time with us. And I want to thank, all the men and women overseas who listen and who appreciate your music. And thank you for all the years of entertaining us with your voice and continued success. And above all, stay safe. And I just want to leave everybody with one thing. Please go to Melissa's website, melissamanchester.com. If you want to download the song, show your support for this artist. If you love her and you're loyal, please download the music and spread it around. And one thing I thought was very profound, and it was so simplistic. I interviewed Lou Gossett Jr. about a month ago, fantastic actor.
Yes.
And, I always, since this COVID's going on, I always ask how they're coping with it and stuff, with all this social unrest. And he said something so simple. There's no secret formula to fix this country. He said it's going to take mankind to save mankind. And these videos are going to be the start of that. Spread these videos around. Let's get rid of the hate. Let's bring in the love and the peace and go back to the way everything should be. And I encourage everybody to check out the singles on YouTube, Just You and I and Midnight Blue. Download the music, and we're eagerly awaiting the next single. And I'm hoping to maybe if you get to the Northeast and start performing, we can come out and see you and show our support for you.
Sure.
But is there anything you want? Did I miss anything? Did I leave anything out? I want to make sure I did this justice.
No, I just say thank you so much and God bless our troops.
Yeah. Melissa, before you go, would you do me one small favor?
Yeah.
Would you do a station ID?
Sure.
You're just going to basically introduce yourself and say you're listening to Animal House Radio when you're ready.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Melissa Manchester, and you lucky people are listening to Animal House.
There you go. Perfect. See that? I told you, Josh. One take.
that was pro. That was like, you've done enough of those, I can tell.
Yeah. But I want to thank my two co-pilots tonight, Joshua and Georgia, two phenomenally gifted people who I'm proud to call friends. And Melissa, I just want you to know, anytime you need us, you let Susan. I want to thank Susan Holder of Susan Holder
yes,
Music
indeed.
for putting this together. If you need anything, the door is always open for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank
Be well,
you all.
everybody.
Thank you. And also, I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. And I remind everybody, Monday at 7 o'clock, please tune in for the round 2 with Louis Gossett Jr. And I want to thank you all for listening. And to all our men and women overseas, please stay safe. Come home soon. And we'll see you next time right here on Animal House Radio.